Hi everyone, welcome back to the Media and You. Thank you all so much for being here. In today's episode or discussion, we will be talking about false narratives on the mass media. So, a false narrative, in my opinion, is something that is either untruthful, misleading from an uncredible source, or just something that is not true. And this is extremely important in today's society and with our relationship with our medias because it can be found literally everywhere. And something I want to speak about today and discuss with you all is its consequences, its effects, and what it can lead people to do because they pay attention to these false narratives. So if this is something that you're interested in watching or discussing, please keep watching. Alrighty, so to start off this video, I want us all to really practice that critical thinking I've been inviting you guys to do in the past videos that I've uploaded. So really think about what a false narrative is in your life because we all encounter them. So a false narrative can be something that is, a lie, misleading from an uncredible source. So a false narrative is something that is, of course, not true. It's misinformation. And I invite you all to think about an occasion in your life when you were misinformed and you acted a certain way because of it. And maybe you were wrong, maybe you were right, and maybe this consequence was very, very impactful in your life, or maybe it had no impact at all. But I am certain that each and every one of us have encountered these false narratives in our lives, not even on the media, but in person as well. But of course, today we will be focusing on the misinformation on the media. But I want us all to really think about how much false narratives are out there. So I want to go ahead and hit on something that is happening in our times right now, in the days that we are living, and how these false narratives are being extremely consequential. You can research it yourself, but there have been numerous occasions where people are drinking or exposing themselves to disinfectants like Clorox or Lysol or chemicals that are extremely harmful to the body, but because they heard it somewhere, unreliable source, that drinking these chemicals or bathing in them would cure or take away COVID-19, when in fact this wasn't the case. I've read into a lot of stories where I believe it was 3 people that took some sort of chemical and one of them ended up dying. I may be incorrect, but I'll try to post something on the screen with more information about it. But this was extremely consequential because they listened to this misinformation and they didn't know that it wasn't an uncredible source. So we can't really blame them for listening to these people because they just didn't know. So my large point for this section is that when we listen to these very huge statements, large accusations or large theories, we really need to pay attention to who they're coming from, where we are listening to them, and most importantly, our values and our beliefs. So when we pay attention to these people, these sources that are often, maybe not often actually, but they are often giving us false narratives. When we pay attention to them, when we start to believe them, we give them a larger power to have that place in society where they are able to spread false information. And because we are believing them, it gives them, of course, more power. So I encourage you all to really pay attention to where we're getting our information from, because again, it can really, really cause a lot of effects. We may believe something this person said online, and it of course changes our values, it changes our ideas, and it changes the way we behave. For example, this is a positive one, but if you believe in climate change, or if you believe about all the plastic that's in the ocean right now, you may start acting a different way. Um, you stop using less plastic, you stop using straws, plastic utensils, plastic Ziploc bags, whatever it may be, because you believe that information, you act a certain way. And I personally believe in climate change, so I am practicing this, but that's exactly my point. I believed in this information, which was from a credible source, and these credible sources can be found, on Google Scholar, on, basically anywhere. But the thing is, we have to pay attention to who is saying them. These people can often be accredited, have high degrees, or are just professionals in those areas. And those can be credible sources. But like I said, with climate change, it can be something completely different, and it can be something that is false. And I want to give a shout out to a Netflix show that is called The Social Dilemma. I recently watched it, and I can say it impacted me so much. And I invite you guys to look at that series or that documentary. And it really showed how the media works around us. And one thing that really impacted me when I saw that show was that misinformation spreads 6 times faster than real information or true information. And that is huge, because lies and deceit and misleading statements have a 6 times bigger advantage than the truth is huge. So again, that is impactful because we are constantly being exposed to it. So how do we know when we're being exposed to it? How do we know how to differentiate the truth versus the lies? And again, that's where critical thinking comes to place. Realize where the sources are coming from, where the communication is being placed, and who's behind it. Often news or websites are being heavily influenced by advertisements or biases, or the people who are writing these things have, again, those biases, so they tend to lead to one side or the other. So it's important to really critically analyze the information that is on the web. The show also talked about how algorithms work on the web, and it showed how if you clicked on something like a theory, or you engaged in a post where they were talking about, just theories like the earth is flat, the algorithm of those media outlets then increased that topic or idea. So the more we engage into this misinformation, the more it's exposed to us. So of course, watching what you're looking at, what you're exposing yourself to, can also stop that misinformation from getting to you. And I really want to encourage you guys to watch that show, because the amount of information that is on there is extremely overwhelming. And I'm only mentioning it to you guys because these people that talked on the show, I believe, are credible sources, because they all experienced it. They were all there firsthand, which is extremely important, I believe, when you're listening to a source. And the people are trustworthy. And I invite you guys to look at that show. Not only is misinformation words or statements or theories, but it is also images. I did talk about this before, but it can also be pictures. And the way we edit our pictures or photographs, the way we filter our faces, whatever it may be, to change the appearance of your actual self, that can be misleading. Of course, we've all heard of catfishing. It's something where it's basically like trolling. Someone is lying to hurt someone, or even just whatever their goal is, it's deceitful. And images can be that same way. Even if that's not the purpose of it, it can be a sort of lying. And I do want to say that filters are not being lied, or they're not the person is not lying, or they're not being bad people. But when the power or the purpose becomes twisted, that's when it becomes negative. So even false information can lie within images. So another one of these effects of false narratives on the media is that it can break or make relationships, even online or in person. Because we are paying attention to these false narratives, we can often exert those onto others, and this can be extremely hurtful to communication in general, because you may be, of course, for example, you may be best friends with, you have a best friend and you believe something online and you tell them this, and we don't realize that what you just shared is untruthful. So the effect of that is your best friend tells their loved ones tell them, and them. So it's a huge web that happens when we start misinformation. So I, of course, have been, I guess, a victim of untruthful misleading. And I've definitely have realized that I said something wrong, or I said a lie, because I didn't know that it was a lie. So again, I encourage you all to really see or find the truth in the information we are reading, because if you share that information with someone else, the probability of them sharing that as well is huge, because you have a relationship with them and there is trust, hopefully, in that relationship. So far we've hit on some of the consequences of false narratives that they may have on our well-being, because we believe these things, or the way we're acting, or the way we're behaving, even to the things we're buying, how it can be physically harmful for our bodies if we believe these false narratives, and what they can do to relationships, what they can do to our communication in general. So there are ways to avoid false narratives, and of course, I've said it a million times, and sorry, but thinking critically about the credible sources we are listening to is a huge way to start. Really critically analyzing what we're reading, and if we believe it, make sure we know that it is something that is truthful. And once we know the truth, then we are able to freely and really share that information with the world and our peers. I want to say that it is often very hard to dissect the truth within lies, and it all starts with practice, of course. I will link some tips down below on how to spot out credible sources and websites that are, reliable and credible. I really encourage you all to look at those. Thank you all so much for staying in this video for so long. I really hope that it helps you in some way, and that our communication methods are more open and more truthful. And thank you so much for watching again. I really appreciate it, and please stay tuned for my next video. Until then, be well. And I also forgot, if you have any questions or any comments or even experiences where you dealt with false narratives in the media, I would encourage you guys, or I invite you guys to comment them down below. I would really love to just have this conversation with you all, because these experiences do happen. Again, thank you all so much for being here. Be well.